Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and it's that time again. It's the Development Hell podcast, and the movie club's back at it again. And this time, to be or not to be. And
Excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me. Pardon me. Pardon me. Excuse me.
and there goes Joe, and we lost him. So we're talking about this Mel Brooks and Bancroft starring remake of a 40s comedy about the Holocaust and World War II. Because, that is the best material to make a comedy out of. But we got the whole gang here. We got Joe, we got Vinnie, we got Jim, we got Matt, we got Alex, and of course, me, because I've been talking already, so you already know that. But you know how we start this off. But this film is at the onset of World War II. A Polish actor's family and the Polish resistance helped a troupe of a theater escape Poland and the invading Nazis. Ripe for comedy. But time to take a spin around here and find out everybody's general thoughts on the film. So, Joe, what are some of your just basic general thoughts on the film?
So, watching this film, I felt as though it was interesting because I don't think you watch a lot of Mel Brooks comedies. I watch a lot of Mel Brooks comedies, but like a lot of them are directed by him. But then you're going to have movies that are produced by him that, vary in tone. But this one still feels like a Mel Brooks comedy, like Mel Brooks comedy light, whereas you have the humor and the off the wall jokes, but it still has a lot more of a standard dramedy sort of style to it. I didn't realize that it was a remake of a 1940s movie, and I feel like that definitely adds a lot more context to that. And on top of the fact that I think the thing that I take away the most from is that you don't see Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft, the late Anne Bancroft, together, and it's kind of endearing. It's cute to see, husband and wife in a movie together. Usually you're seeing Madeline Kahn, so it's kind of cool and refreshing to see Anne Bancroft. Also, can I just point over the fact that she has a very interesting obsession? Two movies, I wouldn't say it's an obsession, on having stories where she's dating significantly younger men.
Yeah, I thought about that.
Like, I don't know. That just seemed very interesting.
She can handle it.
Yeah. Totally believe Johnny Quest would totally get into her.
Shane, was that like a Jack Nicholson reference? You sounded just like Jack Nicholson. She could handle it. I don't know.
You would know if I was doing a Jack Nicholson impression. Also, fun fact, Anne Bancroft's Italian. So I was looking her up in terms of details. I wanted to find out when she passed away. She made it until like 2008. Mm-hmm. Obviously, she didn't make it to 95 like Mel Brooks. Still kicking.
Wow, that's crazy.
But Vinny, what are some of your thoughts on the film?
Well, I wasn't sure which version of Hamlet we had to watch, so I just watched The Lion King.
Or the highlights of Hamlet. Well, I guess that counts as the highlights of Hamlet.
but no, I enjoyed it. I'm ashamed to say it's actually only this. It's only the second Mel Brooks movie that. No, he didn't direct it, so I can't say it's the second Mel Brooks movie I've seen. I've only seen one.
Do you need to borrow something?
It looks like I have to. Yeah, because the only movie of his I've seen that he's directed is Young Frankenstein.
It's a great one. So
it is. I should watch more stuff that he's directed. But he wrote this, right? Didn't he write it? He wrote To Be or Not to Be?
No. No.
I think they kept the original screenplay, or at least they adapted the original
screenplay. Was done by Thomas Meehan and Ronnie Graham. Ronnie Graham played Sondheim.
Okay.
The yelly guy from Backstage.
Well, all right. Well. In any event, I enjoyed it. You know what? I'm so used to like thinking of Anne Bancroft as Mrs. Robinson, and you
Right.
know what, she is funny in The Graduate, but it's more of like a dry sense of humor that she has in that movie, whereas in this one, she's like in this one, like her character, like she's allowed to be like more more energetic. She's like she's she's just more out there
Yeah.
in this movie, but not to disparage her work in The Graduate, like that's it's a very good performance, but I'm just saying in this one she's given like a little more like vibrancy with her comedic stuff, but yeah, I thought it was entertaining. Just like the complexity of like the comedic scenarios, like they have with like characters going in and out, and like impersonating this one, impersonating that one. I had fun with it, and like I thought, like the last 20 minutes, I definitely got like I was. Did anyone else think of Inglorious Bastards in like that last 20 minutes?
Yeah, totally.
I kind of did, but believe it or not, the movie I thought about, because I'm thinking, all right, so they're stowing away a bunch of folks onto a plane and they're being chased. Two movies actually I thought of, Argo and 101 Dalmatians, where they're being smuggled out and there's a chase, and like I was like, wow, this is kind of like those two movies. Like, I guess that cliche, it's a pretty popular cliche, but I mean, yeah, Inglorious Bastards definitely when they're going to the theater, you see Hitler going to a theater.
But yeah, and then just like one final thought for my initial response,
Yeah.
like I did think that for a comedy, like I thought I did pretty well with like sliding into into sort of like thriller territory in like
Yeah.
those last 20 minutes, because like I was really, sorry for the cliche, but I really was on like the edge of my seat to see like what was going to happen, because even though it's a comedy, there's so much at stake for these characters, and I really thought that last section of the movie balanced laughs and thrills really well.
I'm with you there. I actually felt very invested in the characters, and I had no idea if any characters would die, and I was like just really curious to see if like, their lives were at stake. Like, you never know, especially because this movie you rarely ever see or can really see that coming. Some things you could probably see coming the more you're watching it, but at the time I still feel like you're really curious to see where it's gonna go. There was something
let's
else.
get through the rest of
yeah.
our initial thoughts first before we dive into the film. Jim, what are
Yep.
your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is the second Mel Brooks movie that I've watched. Spaceballs with Mel Brooks, yes.
Yes.
My friends loved Spaceballs growing up, and I remember being really disappointed with it. Same thing with like Airplane. Like, my friends loved Airplane, and I was like, this is so corny. But I finally
Jim, you
watched
seem like you
Young
have such a good sense of
Frankenstein.
humor, though.
Yeah, right. I've also seen Young Frankenstein. I love Young Frankenstein. So some of the jokes kind of smacked of that same brand of humor. So I get what you guys are saying about feeling like it was directed by Mel Brooks. I thought this was fun. My least favorite parts of the movie were probably the theater bits, just because I don't know if it's been overplayed since then, or if kind of all of the music was kind of cliche already, and that was part of the joke. But yeah, I don't know. I was hoping for something a little more original out of the show. But movie as a whole, yeah, I thought it was funny. I enjoyed it. It moved along, and it wasn't as predictable as it could have been. So
Yeah.
I'm also curious as to like how the original screenplay played out. I think my favorite quote came from Mel Brooks, and I'm pretty sure this was not in the original film. He said, without fags, gypsies, and who else?
And
There is no
Jews.
theater. Jews, right? Jews, fags, and gypsies, right? There is no theater. I don't know. I thought that was a very self-aware kind of a joke.
And
Probably
only
get
Mel Brooks
canceled
can make
nowadays
it.
too. Yeah.
So-
Anybody else saying we probably get canceled.
Yeah, you can bleep me out if you want to, Shane.
Mel Brooks is too old and too Jewish to get canceled at this point.
And too
Keeps me like
rich,
it's about
too
time.
rich.
Too old
and
too Jewish.
And too rich. Good point, Vinny. Matt, what are your thoughts on the film?
I thought it was a funny movie. It was funny. So when I was watching it, I was thinking actually of Spaceballs, and I was thinking, I wonder if there are going to be like kind of like fourth wall breaky kind of moments.
Yeah.
And so the movie starts, and like they're dancing and they're speaking in Polish, and I paused it. And I thought like HBO Max was like acting weird because it's like, why isn't like what was wrong with I haven't seen the movie, so I'm like, what's happening? Like it's saying English, and I hit the back button. I keep watching. Nothing's like popping up on the screen, and then like the announcer says to cut down on confusion. The rest of the movie is going to be like spoken English, and it's like, there we go.
I actually did try to put on my English subtitles right before that was announced, and then I was just like, "Shit, that is great."
That happened to me too.
Yeah,
That was
like,
amazing.
what's like happening? Why is that like the default? But it's like, no, Polish isn't even like a selection that you can make. Yeah, but no, it's let me see what else. Initial thoughts. I thought so. So over the weekend, I was in DC, and I went to the like the incredibly serious, like actual like memorial like museum, like Smithsonian thing. It was really interesting to kind of like come out of that. It was a couple of days ago, and like watch this, and I was like, whoa, like that's like jarring. It's like boop, boop. It's like a completely different pull. I was thinking about that when I was watching it. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty, so I was thinking about that while I was watching it. And then I think it's weird. I remember when what is it? I think Borat 2. I think that's Borat 2, when Sacha Baron Cohen goes into a synagogue, and like he's some kind of like crazy devil thing. And I'm like, wow, this is like really like a lot. And then I went on Wikipedia just to see like, wait, why does he feel like he can like say this? Like, oh, okay, never mind. So Sacha Baron Cohen is actually Jewish. And I was thinking about kind of like, oh wow, so I guess maybe when people kind of like put like stories like that on the screen, or even there's this really cool show on Hulu called The Patient, which I really recommend everybody watch.
I've seen the ads. I gotta watch that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool movie, and the kind of like that identity is like a really big like focal point of the show. It is interesting how you can kind of like some things either can be referenced or joked around about, and so as long as I guess the people that are behind the camera are, I guess if it's responsible depictions, then it's okay. Like there wasn't a moment, and I'm not Jewish, but it was like a moment where it was like, damn, that was like too far. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen, you know what I mean? Like when you watch a movie and it's kind of like that might be crossing a line. Like I don't think I ever felt that watching this movie. And so it was interesting because this subject matter is like, it's funny, and I think it's funny because it's silly and it's slapsticky, and then because people are screaming really loud and all this other stuff. But it's also funny because it's like so absurd, like you can't, like your brain has to kind of keep going back to like what it's actually referencing, and then going back to like how absurd this thing is, and it's like, okay, like, this is like I don't know, this is interesting, but yeah.
Alex,
I'm obviously not going off of like an outline, right? So that was like stream of consciousness, but like
there you go.
A good movie overall.
How about you, Alex?
A lot of really interesting thoughts, made so far. When I watched this, I was really tired, and I didn't think I would make it very far. But surprisingly, I was surprised. It really kept my interest, and I saved the last half hour for today. But it really did kind of keep my interest. Just initial reactions, it's like it was a lot more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be. I'm not a big Mel Brooks fan. I'm not a big fan of his humor. I've tried to I felt the same way about Spaceballs, and so I go into a Mel Brooks thing expecting I'm gonna laugh at this beat, but then there's gonna be a long stretch where I just don't get it, and then I'm gonna laugh at this beat, and I still had some of that same, I still felt that way about this, but I think I think I enjoyed the interplay between the actors and the different characters. I just enjoyed that aspect of it. The theater stuff, was a little okay, the whole thing felt theatrical to me. The whole thing felt like it could have been a play, to be honest with you. But the fact that the line giver under the stage kept having to say, or not to be, just that cracked me up, because I have a little bit of theater experience. Just the idea of someone having to say that is it's just hilarious. So there's definitely, I feel like Mel Brooks is the type of guy, I think as I get older, I'll appreciate his humor a little bit more. And so I definitely appreciated it more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan. So he's one of my favorite directors, and obviously he didn't direct this movie. But it feels like a Mel Brooks movie. And if you couldn't tell that I love Mel Brooks, because I have my lovely collection here. And it's interesting because I think I might be the one who liked this the least on the call. And I think it's interesting, just to give a little context, because if you watch his films progressively throughout his career, it's diminishing returns. Because he is the kind of person that recycles jokes. He is the kind of person that, after the producers was so clever and so out there.
Was that the first one he directed?
Yep, back in the 60s. And then you had Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, which are two of the greatest comedies of all time. And also, Young Frankenstein's a great science fiction film in its own right. And then you started getting into he did Silent Movie, which I think I love Silent Movie. It's great ode to slapstick, and Anne Bancroft was actually in that. They don't get a whole lot of interaction quite like this. And then there's a dog.
I thought it was pretty iconic for that movie to have the only spoken line be from a mime.
Yep. Pretty funny. But the thing is, I still really enjoy History of the World Part 1, but that's where he starts recycling jokes and stuff like that. And once you get into the 80s, his movies become a lot less fresh. I really enjoy Spaceballs a lot, but there's a lot of recycled jokes and stale stuff in it. And then, of course, Robin Hood Men in Tights, half the jokes are recycled jokes. And then the less we say about Dracula Dead and Loving It will be for the best. But the thing is, this film, I do feel like it had some issues trying to balance the tone. And you're always going to have a challenge trying to make a comedy about World War II and the Holocaust. The moment where the Nazis showed up on stage and kidnapped their friend, that got really intense really quick. It was what the hell? And I think the charm of this film is the fact that you have Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft on screen together. And even when they're not on screen together, each of them doing their own thing, because, Anne Bancroft is being seductive and trying to woo some younger men in this movie. And, Mel Brooks doing Mel Brooks stuff, dressing up like Hitler and doing musical numbers. Also, fun fact, did you all know that Charles Durning, who is the one Nazi,
Colonel Earnhardt,
got nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for this movie?
Wow. Really?
I didn't know that.
Maybe it was that Hitler pickle joke that really did it for the Academy. They were like, "That is a
Which-
funny joke."
I love Charles Durning because like he's in Tootsie. He's also in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Isn't he Lebowski? Isn't
No.
No, that's David Huddleston, who's also in Blazing Saddles, though.
Oh, okay.
They kind of look like he is Papio Daniels in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
It's like why don't we run a underdog campaign? It's like you can't do that, son, as an incumbent, and just like slap his kid. He's a great actor, but like I was shocked that he got nominated for an Oscar for this movie. But he's really funny. And
So
like,
Shane,
he's like 11 in this movie because he like yells like all of his
He
lines.
does.
Yeah, that's why it's
very
yeah.
emotive. So
Yeah.
Shane, did you since you were talking about Mel Brooks doing his own thing, did you ever, when you were watching this movie, do you ever feel like that he's too comedic at times and he's being too Brookies at times when all the other characters are just acting the role? Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, it's like he writes roles around him.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and like Mel Brooks generally plays a particular character and things. Like sometimes he shakes it up, like yogurt.
Listen, guys, I'm
Just
just
being
pure
a
yogurt. I'm
really-
just plain yogurt.
Just being a really Jewish Yoda. But like I feel like this film's a hard sell on some ways. And I'm very interested to check out the original film and to see how they tote that line. Because you can have things like Life is Beautiful, which not gonna lie, when I watched that, I'm like, I don't know how to feel about this. And then you have things like Jojo Rabbit, which I think is absolutely hilarious and then also emotionally devastating.
Yeah.
And like I felt like this movie was better when it's being zany, but also it's also weird. It's dealing with like Nazi invasion of Poland and also being a silly zany movie. But like there's some moments that are interesting and funny, and like I had a fun time with it. I'm definitely not saying I didn't enjoy the movie. This is my first time watching this one in particular, and I feel like this is like lower tier Mel Brooks movies. But still, I like Mel Brooks, so I had a fun time with it. But go ahead. Matt, were you gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna say just really quickly, what did you not like about Life is Beautiful? Like it was too silly? Or that like what do you not like about it?
A horrible tonal shift. The fact that the rom-com for like 2/3 of it, and then it's like, hey, guess what? This is about the Holocaust. And then
then they go to the concentration camp. Okay, got you.
Clearly, Shane, you don't watch enough Bollywood movies because it's pretty much like that, except over the course of 4 hours.
4 hours.
With a dark comedy, I mean, tonal shifts, right? I mean, and then of course, on a subject like the Holocaust, of genocide, World War II, you're always really writing a really fine line, but that's part of the art of it. And I think that it's difficult. The scene that stands out to me, and I know, Matt, you were kind of touching on this when you were talking about your reaction to it, in terms of like a dark comedy, and you're talking about tonal shifts, Shane. The thing that stood out that like was not funny, we didn't laugh, but all the Nazis laughed, was when the Jews dressed as clowns are crying. And then I think it was he runs back and he realizes, if I put the Star of David on them, they'll laugh and then we'll get them out of here. And you're like you're relieved because now they're not going to get shot. They're not going to get killed or captured. But wow, like that was like that, to me, that was the moment that stood out. But that's the moment where it's like, I don't think they cross a line. I think they're using it again. They're using this whole situation to say like, yeah, like look what we're doing. This, and by the way, like a Shakespeare, like most of Shakespeare's comedies can very easily be dramas. It's just people get married and, dance instead of kill each other, or kill themselves, but that moment, and I'm sure there are others, but that was the one that kind of stood out to me. It was like, we're really going to push into people's chests with this part of the movie. That kind of raised the whole movie. Without that, the movie's not quite as where it needs
That
to
was definitely the most emotionally resonant scene in the whole entire movie. Like
Yeah.
that, I felt that, and that's just like, holy crap!
Now,
Did not expect it.
Now, here's the difficult part, and filmmakers and artists have run into this. If we're laughing with the bad guys, if we're laughing with the Nazis, that's not what you want, But if we're not laughing when the Nazis are laughing, or we're laughing when the Nazis are not, I think that, that's the fine line you have to walk.
It's interesting you're saying that too, because like it kind of reminds me, and also what Shane's mentioning too about tonal shifts. Like the thing that stands out to me is the scene when the gay friend is being chased and being hunted down, and there's the musical bit that Bronski's doing with the girls, and it's like a big over the top, and then it's supposed to be Anne Bancroft coming out, but it ends up being the gay friend, and then it's the whole, oh no, this is a guy, it's supposed to be a woman thing, and then all of a sudden Nazis come on stage and beat him up. Like you go from like the traditional comedy stuff to like getting into serious drama. It's very thin line in that Shakespearean way. And I feel like that's a big takeaway from this film, is that that's why it probably doesn't lean more towards being the standard, Mel Brooks comedy, is that it's more or less just a full, just standard, like, I don't know I guess the best way to describe like a drama comedy sort of genre, like something that just kind of balances all of that stuff together. Sometimes some jokes work and sometimes they don't. Also, two things. One, Shane, don't disrespect Leslie Nielsen. In anything he does, I'm always going to laugh. That's to Dracula Dead and Loving It.
I didn't say Leslie Nielsen wasn't good in it.
He's the best part in it.
I'm just saying it's not a good movie.
It's not. I get that, but the best thing that makes that movie is just how pissed off and fed up he is. It's called Dracula Dead and Loving It, but he's so pissed off throughout most of the movie, and that's what makes it work. Also, number two, did anybody freak out a little bit when they realized that Christopher Lloyd has a bit role in this?
I remember seeing his name come up on the opening credits. So I was like, oh, he's gonna be in this. And then, but then when I saw him come in, like, what, I keep forgetting that he's much younger in Back to the Future than he looks. So this only came out like 2 years before Back to the Future. So I forgot how young he actually
and
was.
Tall.
I forgot like how young he actually was in the 80s. So like when I saw him come out with without like his Doc Brown makeup that I'm so used to, I always associate him with, I was like, oh wow, he's so young in this.
Yep. I think that's one of the weirdest realizations that people have at some point in their life. It's just like, oh yeah, he was so old. He was like the older guy in Back to the Future. It's like, oh wait a minute, they just made him look that way. They made him look like 20 years older.
But it's just like what they did with Anne Bancroft in The Graduate. She was I think she was only like a few years older than Dustin Hoffman, but then they made her look to be middle aged.
Wow, she did a really good job then. I really thought she was a middle-aged woman.
No, she wasn't. I think.
Wow.
I think she was only in like her, I want to say like mid 30s, if that.
That makes me appreciate the movie. So I know we're talking about To Be or Not to Be, but that makes me appreciate The Graduate so much more, because it totally captures the malaise of being older. you know, by having characters that feel like they're older, but then are not actually older. That's very fascinating. That's
Hey, I'd be
great.
Tim
Thank you,
Matheson
Vinny.
in this movie.
Thank you for sharing that, Vinny.
And I think Anne Bancroft really gets to lean into like that in this movie, and I really appreciate it because like I definitely would be interested if I was Tim Matheson's character. Which it's also interesting. It's just like a few years before this, he hit it big in Animal House, and then he gets to be in this film acting against Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft.
Hey, Matt.
Good for him.
Hey, Matt.
Yep.
Robot House.
Robot House. Dude, I was literally wearing my college sweatshirt and like this week, and my boss was like, so why doesn't it say what college you're going to? I was like, oh no, this is from a movie. And she was like, what movie?
Oh no.
And I'm like, come on, really? So like, oh, like this movie called Animal House, and I feel like that's the joke. It's just college. And then she was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, all right, so I guess the staff meeting is over. And then like we left. Like it was so awkward. It was like, oh, come on.
Did anybody else watch Animal
Like,
House
how do I
their
know
first
that you don't
weekend
know
of
that?
college?
Wait, what happened?
Did anybody else watch Animal House their first weekend of college? Because I did.
Dude, I binged every single like getting ready for college movie possible. Like I binged that, tried to like, I don't know, just come up with some kind of like weird thought of what it's going to happen. College is not Animal House. Well, I guess it can be.
If you
go out of your way to make Animal House, it could be Animal House, but that wasn't.
You got to join a fraternity, Matt.
I actually didn't see Animal House until after college.
There you go.
Guys, confession, I've never seen Animal House, and I lived in a house called Animal House.
You lived in a house. You live in a house called Animal House?
I did live during college. My house name was Animal House, and I never watched the movie.
Oh, okay.
You were making a statement. I mean, you were making a statement. I'm not gonna fall into the stereotype of having to watch this movie. I'm gonna go through college and not watch it.
But one
I was
one
like, oh,
note
what's
that
an
I wanted to
alternative
bring
film
up.
club about? What, Shane?
I was gonna say one note I wanted to bring up about To Be or Not to Be is the fact that.
Excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me.
Bye, Joe. Is that
Go check on Jess, make sure she's where she's supposed to be.
That was good, Jim.
So the point that I was trying to make is that when you watch a Mel Brooks film, you're watching some of the most talented comedic talents of the time. And like even the smallest roles, because like you have Ronnie Graham, who wrote the film and also plays like Sondheim, whose job is literally just yelling at people behind the stage in this movie. You have Estelle Reiner, you have Rob Reiner's mom. I love
what she's having.
George Weiner, Colonel Sanders from Spaceballs. Of course, Charles Durning, who goes like full blown up to like 11, just yelling. Tim Matheson, who I guess plays like the younger like straight character into the film. But then you have Mel Brooks. He gets to play dress up. He gets to pretend he's an older doctor. And everybody in their performances are having a lot of fun. Like you could tell they're just having a blast.
Yeah.
Like you could just look at Charles Durning and be like, I bet you the biggest piece of acting he's doing in this movie is holding the smile back that he probably had making this whole entire movie. And I think that's fun. And that's one of the things that I appreciate most about Mel Brooks films is like, you can tell everybody's having fun. And because everybody's having fun, you're having a blast watching it too.
Yeah.
Totally.
On that note, did you guys notice Max Brooks gets a credit in this film? The author of World War Z?
Yeah. He played the little boy, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm assuming this is his first role. Maybe not. I mean, considering who his dad is.
that totally does make sense. Like, I feel like this has, when you look at the end credits and they're like, you know, kind of like doing their ensemble like theater role curtain call, like the fact that like him and Anne Bancroft are just so close, and you know that they're a couple in real life. I could totally see them having, you know, little Max in there, despite the fact that he's going to be a, you know, probably surviving the zombie apocalypse or becoming president when there is a zombie apocalypse, because he knows so much about zombies apparently.
Wonder how he did his research.
Yeah. He probably just like throughout his life just kept asking his dad questions like, "Hey dad, what would you do?" "Well, first off, I would probably stock up," or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, do that impression again.
Keep that impression.
Please, I'm just plain yoke.
Keep that impression for the rest of the episode.
All right. I don't know how. I'm really not good at Mel Brooks. I'll try.
Right,
I'm
Woody
horrible
Allen.
at Mel Brooks, guys. I can't.
Can you do Woody Allen?
If you want to hear
Makes
some
me
Woody
so
Allen
nauseous.
impression, just look at Edward Norton in a Sausage Party.
Oh my,
Yeah, guys.
that was
100% what he was doing.
For sure.
100%.
Animal House Now Sausage Party. You're killing me, Shane.
Hey, it's that raunchy comedy. Mel Brooks had his time with some raunchiness in some of his comedies. Once he hit the 80s, that kind of went away. Like, you know, you watch this, you watch Spaceballs, they're a lot more muted kind of humor. And it's interesting watching him evolve over the course of his career and like getting to this point. And you can tell, I think at this point, he was just really happy to be doing a film with his wife.
Yeah.
And getting to have fun with that. And like, good for him. Like, Mel Brooks,
And he's
has
getting paid
got,
doing it.
like, nobody could take anything away from this man. Like, he makes this amazing comedy, The Producers, and then decades later is like, you know what? Let's take it to Broadway. Wins a bunch of Tonys, and he's like, you know what? Let's take it back to making it to a movie. And then they adapt his own thing into a movie again. It's just like, he can do whatever the hell he wants. Hey, he even remade Blazing Saddles with dogs and cats.
I knew it. I knew you were going to bring Paws of Fury up.
It's just like, that's the thing.
Was that good?
I would love if he made another movie before he passed away at some point. But the thing is, like, he hasn't directed a movie since like the early to mid 90s.
Wow.
And
A lot of fans want him to do a Spaceballs 2, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like it would only work if, like, I think his son would be better off, or maybe having like some young, you know, blood on something like Spaceballs.
if I can either have Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money in My Life, or History of the World Part 2, Jews in Space, like, I want it.
No. Jews in space
A Viking funeral,
with actual horns on their heads.
Hitler on ice. Here's the thing. Mel Brooks does not give a shit.
Hey, there ain't no Inquisition like the Spanish Inquisition.
When a man can make a musical number about the Spanish Inquisition and make it absolutely hilarious, you know you have some talent there. You know,
I think,
the Grand Inquisitor Talquemada. You can't talk him out of anything.
The best part of that is the fact that they were all wearing like New Balance sneakers in that pool. Like, it is such a bizarre detail to include. Like, I don't even know if that's like even a thing. It's like they're just all wearing these white New Balance sneakers.
I guess at this point, obviously we've talked a lot about Mel Brooks. We've talked a bit about To Be or Not to Be. But does anybody else have anything else that you wanted to specifically say about this film?
There he goes. I liked how they did the final climactic I don't know how to say this, like before the airplane scene.
Yeah.
A certain character dies on screen, but not only on screen, but he's on the stage. I thought that was very clever. Considering, like somebody said, the tone of the movie is very theatrical, like all the way through.
Yeah.
It's got a very old guard Hollywood. I had a professor in school who was Jewish via West Virginia, and her humor was like very, very Mel Brooks. Like she'd make a joke and then go, "Hey." That sounded Italian. That sounded too Italian, but you know what I mean.
I want to say it's a New Yorker. It's a New York mentality.
Just to put it out there,
yeah,
Italians,
like a Broadway
Jewish people have
mentality,
a
right?
lot in common.
And she apparently wrote jokes for, I don't know who. She never told me who she sold these jokes to, but like she would write a lot of humor, and I feel like it was very much in this vein. So I thought of her a few times watching this movie.
That's nice.
Yeah, because like it does have that old school Hollywood feel because it is a remake of a real classic old school Hollywood comedy. And because To Be or Not to Be came out in 1942, starring Carol Lombard, Jack Benny, and Robert Stack, who must have been really, really young
and
at that point.
The storyline is basically the same.
Yeah, during Nazi occupation of Poland, an acting troupe becomes embroiled in a Polish soldier's effort to track down a German spy.
Wow.
So like same basic idea.
During the war.
And
this, it's crazy.
And that's a beloved classic of Hollywood. Like To Be or Not to Be, it looks like has like middle of the road Mel Brooks kind of like reviews, but I do love highlights of Hamlet, and maybe someday we could do the opposite of highlights to Hamlet, which is Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet,
like legit Hamlet.
all 4 hours of Hamlet. I do have to say, I do think it's really funny Mel Brooks dressed up as Hitler.
Yeah.
During their skit part, and then I can't help but laugh at the part where it's just like Anne Bancroft trying to explain to Charles Durning, it's like, I'm waiting for somebody big, and then like Hitler walks in, and he's just like, somebody big, and Mel Brooks just. Because, like, besides Charlie Chaplin, how many other people could get away with, like, dressing up like Hitler and having fun with it?
You mean Charlie Chaplin wasn't Hitler? I thought he was his body double.
Well, I mean, I guess Taika Waititi did in Jojo Rabbit.
See, now we have the triumvirate. There's the three. Nobody else can do it.
Speaking of which, I think that's an interesting to bring up because in Jojo Rabbit, they do show Hitler smoking and eating unhealthy. And in this movie, To Be or Not to Be, they address that Hitler doesn't smoke and was super into fitness. Like apparently those are like real details that I guess they had to like research when making this movie. Do you mind if I share my final thoughts too?
Sure, Joe.
Only with the Brooks impression, Joe.
Okay, so basically, I want to say now I sound like Rick Sanchez, guys.
Morty.
You gotta watch this movie, To Be or Not to Be. It's fairly okay. I mean, the problem. I don't want to say this movie's perfect or anything. I would say like the thing that really kind of got on my nerves is the fact that in the middle when they're going through all these convoluted, I'm going to dress up as this character and then I'm going to go ahead, for the point of trying to get a list of people in the underground that they can, eventually like arrest. I mean, it should be like point A to point B, Morty, right? But for some reason, it just sometimes feels like it gets a little bit convoluted and stuck up its own butt. I'm not sure if anybody else got that vibe too.
I'm imagining like someone clicking on this video having never seen any of the other videos, and and then them to kind of just like leaning backwards from the computer monitor, like what the hell?
Who are these people?
Yeah, like
We have obviously gotten a lot more comfortable with each other in the past
Year.
22 months
Yes.
of doing this. It's almost 2 years that we've been doing this. But yeah,
Wild.
anybody else have any final thoughts that they're not going to say in a Rick Sanchez impression?
well, it's my turn now. No, I'm kidding. No,
It is your turn.
no, Alex, you go. I mean, yeah,
Well,
it's an interesting movie. I don't know. I would not watch it again, but it was an interesting movie. It was an interesting experiment. It didn't pay off 100% every time, but like, it's okay. It was a movie. It was a movie. I had some Subway. I ate it while I watched the movie. It was good.
I was gonna say something. So, when we have these talks, you talk about the movie, but we also talk about around the movie because of why these movies get made. This, just for me as an individual, this seems like the type of movie I would have appreciated more if I saw it as part of a play, with some friends, or go and see a play with a lady friend or something like that. It would have been more enjoyable to go like out and see this and then go to a diner afterward or something like that. It would have been
Go
more
to Applebee's.
memorable. Not Applebee's. All right, fine. Screw it. Applebee's. That's fine. That works for me. They have Sam Adams on tap. It works. But as far as back to talking about around the movie, it kind of makes me wonder, like, and Shane, you guys will be able to correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like it's like we've been able to make jokes about World War II because we're far enough removed from it. And maybe this is like a reminder, like maybe we need to be able to laugh at and around the different wars that, especially the United States has been involved with, so that we can poke holes in it, so we can point at what's wrong with it. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't see anybody making a dark comedy about, the invasion in Ukraine. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that needs to happen, so that it reminds people, hey, that's still going on. Maybe there needs to be a dark comedy about school shootings so that we can remind people, like, hey, that's still going on. As screwed up as all that is, but I think that maybe it's kind of like, if you look at it like through that lens.
Only if Mel
I don't know how the sorry, Vinny, Holocaust was treated like before Schindler's List, but I feel like that was a pretty landmark event in kind of film discussion. So the fact that this was pre-Schindler's List to me does say something. Like, it was much safer to make something like The Producers. Maybe after The Producers. I don't know how it was at the time, but The Producers was wildly successful. This was not a risk. This was not like highly controversial or anything,
Because Nazis, everybody hates Nazis.
I will still pay money to see Springtime for Hitler if they ever made that into an actual show. So I'm waiting, Mel Brooks.
No time for Poland and France.
Goebbels, baby, Goebbels. But yeah. So obviously Mel Brooks doesn't give a crap about poking fun at controversial and uncomfortable topics.
Well, what about, what was the Korean movie, the Korean War? The Kim Jong-il thing that got really controversial.
The interview.
The interview, yeah.
That was like basically banned, right? I mean, you can watch it.
And then Netflix is just like, we're going to distribute it.
Right. But it got
I understood that reference.
It got pulled from theaters, right?
Yes.
No, well, it was even before it hit theaters.
Yeah, they didn't let it get distributed into theaters, and then Netflix bought it because they're like, I'll have every single human being come over to Netflix and watch this.
It's funny you say that too.
But
Yeah.
then it ended up getting like mixed reviews anyway. It
Yeah,
wasn't that funny. I didn't think.
No.
I feel like the closest we have to like a movie that's pushing like when it comes to comedy pushing things is was probably Borat 2. Like just for the fact of when it was made and how it was made, where it's like we're just gonna make a comedy that's gonna push buttons, you know, because people are gonna need to see that, you know. That's kind of what gets me to watch Always Sunny still, is that that's a show that does not give a fuck when it comes to who they're gonna offend.
I think the difficulty is finding the permission and getting the green light to have a budget, and you know, how does it get past the pre-production table? You know, you got it's tough. That's
a lot of producers just sweating like, I don't know if we're gonna get away with that.
Yeah, you have to have a pretty, you know, you guys talk about A24 all the time, and I've seen some of that stuff. You know, that's where it's gonna come in is A24, or
you
you
get
know,
to $1 million, you can make whatever the hell you want.
you want to make a trilogy in under a year, you go right ahead.
But I think that's where and you know, I don't know the storyline. It looks like one of the Farrelly brothers is doing the greatest beer run ever. Which basically the way they're marketing it the same way they marketed the Green Book, right? Like it's like Tom Hanks might as well be in it somewhere. Like, you know, like they're making they're making a slice of life apple pie movie about the Vietnam War. So I'm like,
that's actually how I heard about Barbarian, is that they made the movie seem like a slice of life comedy, but it's actually not at all.
Wait, what?
So there was a trailer that came out that 20th Century Fox released called Justin Long's Next Movie.
It didn't come out before the movie. It actually just came out like maybe
it came out after the movie, because I've never heard anything about Barbarian until I watched this trailer.
Yeah, because they only released a teaser trailer for Barbarian that does not give away anything.
Nope.
And to be honest, I would suggest not watching the trailer that has Justin Long in it, because it's going to ruin watching the movie.
I don't know about that, because the one thing that I took away from it is that Zach Krieger from The Whitest Kid You Know directed this.
Well, you could see that in the original trailer.
I know, but I mean, seeing The Whitest Kid You Know gives me like the banner kind of made me feel good, especially considering that one of the main writers passed away last year.
What I want to at this point, and like if you look at the context, in 1983, Mel Brooks was producing his own movies. Like he produced The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
At this point, and he gonna produce The Fly in a couple of years after this. So like Mel Brooks was at the point where like he was doing whatever the hell he wanted. He even forced the studio into keeping Jeff Goldblum in The Fly because they didn't want him. Boy, was the studio wrong. But
I don't know. Produce that. That's crazy.
Yep. I think this film in a nutshell is it just proves the clout and the power that Mel Brooks had in Hollywood. Like he could go out and he could make a movie with his wife, have some fun, you know, say some things about the Holocaust and stuff like that. And like I did get to watch The Greatest Beer Run Ever a couple of days ago, because I got a screen.
Is my assessment of that wrong? And I was only basing it on the marketing.
The movie's about a guy who, like, the whole entire movie is one giant sledgehammer trying to hit you in the face with a teenager's perspective on Vietnam.
Okay.
It's basically like the whole entire beginning of the movie, Zac Efron's like, the media is destroying our soldiers. The media hates our soldiers and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, I'm going to do something about Vietnam. So he decides to hop a ship and go take beer to his friends fighting in Vietnam. And then, of course, the whole entire movie is him learning about what's really going on in Vietnam. And by the end of the movie, he's like, this isn't a war. This isn't like they're lying to us, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, Peter Farrelly, are you a 15-year-old who just learned about Vietnam and decided to write a script about it?
So, okay, Boomer.
I think he got real high off of the success of Green Book. He's like, hey, I took on racism. Now I'm going to take on the Vietnam War. And just like, awkward.
Speaking of power in Hollywood, though, from what I understand, much like Mel Brooks, Peter Farrelly tends to be a very liked person in Hollywood. Like most people who end up working with him just talk about enjoying his personality. So sometimes it's probably kind of contributing to what you're mentioning about Mel Brooks. I just think that he has power because he's just such a good person. Like in this day and age, when you're hearing about like the Me Too movement, or you're hearing about really shit producers who abuse and neglect, you know, their actors, and then you hear like about actors and producers who are just good people. Sometimes you just want to surround yourself around good people, you know?
Well, to be fair, I think Mel Brooks got the clout because he's talented and films.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to say it. The Green Book is an incredibly entertaining, feel-good movie, but it's also terribly convenient. You know, that's
at every turn.
Yes. Yeah. I
at
know.
Every K turn.
But then when I saw that he had directed this, I went, you know, like, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's at least he's trying, but he's going to get that green lit because he is who he is, and he's going to make it the way he makes it. So
you mean green booked?
Just don't get Bob involved, or else you're going to end up with movie 43.
I'll see myself out.
I love movie. I love that joke.
Now, I feel like
I actually really like movie 43.
Okay.
I think the last thing we need to talk about before we wrap up on To Be or Not to Be.
It was fucked. Yes.
Are we inviting Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft to Applebee's?
Yep.
I'm taking Anne Bancroft over to Tommy's.
Hobby's on the tavern. Would you? The problem is, though, I don't know if you can be able to get both of them together. They'll just be bickering the whole time. I think it would be better if we get,
but that's what,
one or the other.
That's what will be so entertaining about it, to see them bicker.
True, but then like trying to get away from each other and scheme away so that they don't have to be around each other. I mean, yeah, you're right. That would be interesting.
Well,
but then it's like, but I just
specifically said Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft, not their characters in this movie.
Not the Bronskis.
In that case,
he didn't say the Bronskis. Yeah.
Okay. No, in that case, then I would rather have Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft together, and then maybe Max.
I'm also okay with just having Anne Bancroft come with us. But anyway,
she's still doing it.
We went to some interesting places on this discussion of To Be or Not to Be. I wonder what interesting discussions we'll have next time when we celebrate Halloween by talking about the 1970s remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I can guarantee you'll hear me make some really creepy noises while we talk about the movie. But
I make no promises.
I am making a promise. But thank you all from Joe, Vinny, Matt, Jim, Alex, and Shane.
Sorry, that made me laugh.
Thank you for always tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.
I love you guys.
Oh.
Leaving that all in.
Please do.